Welcome to Supercool, the show tracking the rise of the low-carbon economy, a multi-trillion-dollar transformation reshaping global industries and cities. Each week, we spotlight the climate tech, business models, and strategies already cutting carbon, boosting profits, and improving modern life. I'm your host, Josh Dorfman. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe or leave a review wherever you listen. And if you also want to go deeper into Supercool climate solutions now scaling, check out our weekly newsletter. You can find it at getsuper.cool. There's so much fascinating hidden stuff powering the clean energy future. Things buried deep in the guts of global infrastructure. We don't even know they're there, but without them, there's no modern low-carbon world. Last week with Tim Holt of Siemens Energy, we talked about one of those things, giant machines called synchronous condensers. When you retire natural gas plants and take their turbines offline, you actually destabilize the power grid. Those turbines provide heavy inertia, momentum the grid counts on to stay stable. Synchronous condensers step in to fill that gap as we move to a world powered by renewables like solar and wind. Synchronous condensers. I'm sure 99.99% of the world has never heard of them, but they're vital to the future we're trying to build. This week, we're talking about something just as vital, magnets. It turns out magnets are a lot more than horseshoe toys or things you stick on your refrigerator. Magnets are found in every electric motor on Earth. They generate the motor's rotation. You know that instantaneous torque and power you get in an electric vehicle? That's magnets at work. The stronger the magnets, the more efficient the motor, meaning lower costs, lower emissions, and longer lifespan. What do you need to build powerful magnets? Rare earth elements, especially the ones at the bottom of the periodic table that few of us bothered to pay attention to in school. The ones with names like neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, terbium, and samarium. The good news? We know what they are. The bad news? Today, China controls over 90% of the global supply chain, from mining to processing to turning them into metals. 2 decades ago, China saw where the world was heading and invested heavily. Today, they dominate the virgin supply. Meanwhile, here in the West, we control landfills, scrapyards, data centers full of aging hard drives, garages piled with old power tools, all containing rare earth magnets in their motors, which we mostly throw away. And while demand for rare earth elements is projected to jump 500% by 2035, less than 1% of rare earth magnets are currently recycled. That's the opportunity Ahmed Gheraman saw 4 years ago when he co-founded Cyclic Materials. Ahmed spent his career as a metallurgist working at the intersection of industry and academia, which led him to a massive insight. Rare earth metal demand is about to skyrocket, and almost nobody is recycling them. So Cyclic Materials figured out how to do what many thought was impossible. Recover end-of-life electric motors, separate out the rare earth magnets, and recycle the rare earth elements within them. Last year, the company shipped the first ever ton of recycled rare earths to its customers, a feat never done before. Now, just 4 years into building their company, Cyclic Materials counts Microsoft, Amazon, BMW, and Jaguar among its investors and customers. The West needs Cyclic Materials to start to meet industry demand as it races to rebuild its rare earth elements supply chain. Cyclic Materials is now scaling its tech and manufacturing model to meet this moment. Ahmad joins the show today to talk about it. Here's our conversation. Ahmad, welcome to Supercool.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Preparing to talk to you about Cyclic Materials took me into directions I have not explored since probably junior year high school, looking at a periodic table, trying to decipher what that means. Let's start with your background, metallurgy, metals, how you arrived at this understanding of the importance of magnets, which I didn't realized was so important to how the world functions and what led to Cyclic. I know that's a lot, but let's jump in there and we'll take the conversation as it goes.
Cyclic Materials has been many years in making. So I did my PhD on extractive metallurgy. That's fancy word for how to make metals, really. After that, I worked for a large gold mining company called Barrick Gold. Then after that, I was a professor actually for about 10 years or so, again on extraction of metals, how to make metals. My focus has been on multiple different metals: copper, gold, nickel, cobalt, lithium, rare earth elements, many different metals that I have looked into. But one thing in 2020 I noticed about rare earth metals and magnets, basically rare earth metals are the ingredients of magnets, was that we're going to need a lot of these metals and we recycle almost none of these metals. And those two statements actually did make rare earth metals the most critical, least circular metals out there. And Cyclic Materials, I started it simply to change that.
Here's what I love. When I think about your background, so you were at Baring. Baring, in my mind, I don't know if you've ever read any books from like James Clavel. He wrote Shogun. He wrote this book about Iran in the late 1970s. It's like one of those companies that's sort of the backdrop of lots of spy thrillers, or it could be, right? And so it's just one of these important in the background sort of industries where you're cutting your teeth. You then go into academia. You're running a very big, very important lab in Canada looking at metals. You've got a lot of folks working with you. You're inventing stuff that has spawned other companies with multi-billion-dollar valuations. But you're not an entrepreneur. And then in 2021, you change everything and you switch paths. And now, fast forward 4 years, you have unbelievable investors. You have incredible customers. You're building this team. The question I want to ask is like, is your head spinning? And how do you navigate that transition to suddenly be founder and CEO of a company doing something so big, so fast, so critical?
It's been a phenomenal transition from academia to the business world. But I will tell you, when I built my research team at university also, I brought in a lot of research funds into my team. So I have a track record of defining the problems and finding the problems that people are thirsty to solve it. And I usually dive into the biggest problems. I don't compromise. And that's been some of the things that have helped me in past years to basically navigate the transition from university to business. I will tell you, yes, absolutely. We have one of the most amazing cap tables out there. We have some investors from Microsoft, Amazon, Hitachi, BMW, you name it. Some of the really robust names in investment community, venture community, energy impact partners, and many more. I don't want to Arcturn Ventures in Canada. I don't want to name just a few, but we have really robust believers on what we are doing. But I will tell you, the vision really has been what guides us in the company every single day towards where we are going. These metals are the most critical metals. They have been on the news every day in the past few months, but really they do deserve the attention. Let me paint you a picture. The year is 2040. We have about 9 billion people on our planet and more than 10 billion robots on our planet. Every single robot, if it moves, if it has a hand that moves, it's because of an electric motor. And every single electric motor has a little bit of those magnets in them. So really, magnets are important for what we are building our cities to look like in the future. So it's a mission for us. It's what we are striving for.
I love that. We seem to be in this moment on our end on Supercool where we're having conversations around these critical components of the low carbon future. We talked last week with Tim Holt. He's an executive board member at Siemens Energy, a company that's critical to that future in the grid. And we're drilling in with you into rare earths. We're looking at this space that today everyone is talking about. I don't really think anyone fully understands because everyone's like, oh, rare earth metals, rare earth elements, China, 93% of the market today. For the last 20 years, they've gone after mines, they've gone after the manufacturing, the processing, and really strategically looked at the future. The US is now catching up. We all want to sound smart. You know, we got tariffs now, we have this pending trade war. What is this going to mean for the West? And here is your company that is increasingly, I imagine being viewed as strategically important as this all ratchets up, even though before a tariff situation, industry already knew what you were doing was so critical. So it's not like, oh, wow, thank God this happened. The industry's been looking at you for a while and saying, geez, if the West is going to have a shot here at rebuilding some infrastructure that we've lost around rare earths, we really need something like Cyclic Materials.
In past few years, actually, I have been talking to investors, to broader stakeholders of the company, and I've been telling them, I'm just basically connecting the dots. China came out in December 2023, put a ban on export of equipment and technology related to rare earths. Last summer in 2024, they nationalized rare earths industry within China. So those are really some of the significant signals that, hey, this is coming, hey, this is coming. And then they put export ban on some other critical metals, not rare earth elements, but some others in 2023 and 2024. So this is not a surprise to us. And one of the key reasons Cyclic Materials was born was the rare earth elements are so fundamental to decarbonization and electrification of our cities that we can't really be efficient in doing so without these metals. And yet we have none of those mined and processed in many of the Western countries. So the idea from day one was recycling is the fastest way to get to production of those metals. Let's face it, we started the company in 2021, and in 2024, we shipped our first ton of rare earth oxide. On mining and metals space, that record has never been broken, actually. And then availability of products. When you are on the recycling end or circularity end, you live 10 years ago. We do live 10 years ago. Whatever people bought in the market 10 years ago, we do recycle those today. And that gives us a cushion of feedstock that we have been importing from China and other countries in the past many years. And now we have this largest overground feedstock of material or mine or deposit of rare earth elements that we are processing. And that gives us some advantage that mining and resource companies don't have it today. So I think recycling will be the way to supply the critical metals into the market in the short term with really fast pace versus other companies on the mining side.
Okay, so let's drill into a few things there, and then we'll work backwards for a minute. Let's start with end of life. Let's start with where are the rare earth metals that you can recycle. I know there's infrastructure you're able to tap into to do that efficiently. How you get at the magnets, how you recycle the rare earth, and the technologies that enable that to happen.
Sure. 101 on rare earth elements. All of us basically graduated high school without learning about them. They actually do happen to sit at the bottom of periodic table. We have 17 of them, and only 5 or 6 of them are the key rare earth elements that we need to make magnets. Those are praseodymium, neodymium, dysprosium, terbium, and also samarium. When we use rare earth elements to make magnets, we end up with the most strong magnets that we can make on our planet. And when we use those strong magnets, we make really high quality and high efficiency electric motors. So you can see if Tesla is building an electric vehicle, it just makes sense to tie up the really expensive battery to a efficient electric motor to use that electricity wisely. So that just makes sense. Now, what we recycle at the end of life is basically the same products that we have consumed. And that could be electric motors, that could be wind turbines, the generator of wind turbines, that could be your e-bike, your e-scooter, anything and everything that normally you tie up to a battery will have one of those electric motors in it that we want to recycle. Those electric motors or hard disk drives in data centers. Amazon, Microsoft have large volume of those data centers with a lot of those hard disk drives and every single hard disk drive with a magnet in the corner. So those products usually are made of copper, aluminum, steel or iron, and magnet. There's some other things in them as well, but those 4 metals are the key metals that you would use to make those products. And we start our process by basically taking in the whole unit or end-of-life product and reducing it to copper, aluminum, steel, and magnet. Copper, aluminum, steel are products that we can sell, and we do sell immediately after. But the magnet, we take it through a chemical process, and we produce the ingredients that were used to make that magnet. Those would be rare earth oxides. But I will point out, in doing so, the whole supply chain that our company has from A to Z, for production of same amount of product, we produce only 35% of the carbon that mining industry would produce. And this is important to me. We consume only 5% of the water that mining industry consumes because a lot of mining activities happen in areas that water is not abundant. And those are some of the metrics that we really are proud of in our company.
What would be an example, the motor in a wind turbine? I imagine those are starting to become available as this sort of 20-year cycle of the earlier wind turbines are starting to be decommissioned. But when you say looking into the future, we're going to have 9 billion robots, and I can see that future too, what we're building. But you're talking about urban mining, like there's all these motors out there. I've heard you mention also like maybe power tools. I mean, it's really anything where there's this electric motor. What exists today? What infrastructure or recycling chains exist that you can tap into for that stuff so you don't have to go reinvent the wheel of trying to say, hey, send all your stuff to us? That's not how this works, right?
100%. We have started with end-of-life products that already there is a collection scheme for them. For instance, some of those products you mentioned, electric motors or power tools, or the electric motors in washers, dryers, dishwashers, the AC units, the list really goes on. Some of those are already collected for different reasons. For instance, AC units are collected because of the cooling gas. So we have started with those markets, mature markets, to look into those ones for feedstock that we need. And anything and everything that has magnet and copper can take in those products and process them and get the magnet and copper aluminum value out. With that in mind, basically, we just wanted to make sure our feedstock range is so wide that we can get wide range of products that already are available in large volumes in the market until the times that electric vehicles are here for mass retirement. Wind turbines are here for mass retirement. I will tell you though, on electric vehicle side, that day is not too far away from us. For instance, Toyota started selling their hybrid cars, which the electric motor of that consumes magnet, in 1998 in the US. And we have had multiple generations of those hybrid cars from Toyota and other companies around. Nissan was a flagship company by selling Nissan Leafs in the US. Tesla, of course, has been around for quite some time. So those feedstocks are becoming really large volume today. But there are some other mature feedstocks, such as hard disk drives. The average life of hard disk drive is 3 years in data center. So every 3 years, you have to swap that data center hard disk drive. And data centers have been around for quite some time. So those also are readily available to recover this value. I will give you one other number. Rare earth elements are recycled. I think the latest number I saw is less than 0.5% in North America and in Europe, globally, I'm going to say. And this is really something that has to change because those metals are the most valuable and highest carbon footprint when we mine them. So it's just simply doesn't make sense to mine them, bring them, put them in products, and use the product and then put it in landfill. It just doesn't make sense.
35% of the carbon footprint with the recycled rare earths versus mining. That makes sense. That's what one would hope. I think sometimes with recycling in other areas, the math doesn't always pencil the way we really hope. So that's obviously critical to say that the value add from a decarbonization perspective. I also want to emphasize this point again because I find it fascinating. What I'm hearing you saying is, hey, everything we've got in civilization today and more coming has an electric motor in it. We've gone through all this effort to mine the elements that make that thing work. And it's all around us. It doesn't make sense, though this is how we've been operating, just to allow that stuff, probably most of the time, to end up in a landfill. There's a more circular model, a different way of thinking that you're bringing forth. And when I was preparing to talk to you, listening to the interviews you've given over the last couple of years, I heard a perspective from the critical minerals industry, I believe. And there were people in that industry over the last couple of years, as you've been developing your technology, hitting all of these proof points along the way, who have basically said, no, it's impossible. Like, this has never been done. I have two questions for you. The first is, help me understand what is so hard, or maybe what is so new about what Cyclic Materials is doing. And then the second question is, because it came from that skepticism, was like, because if they figure this out, this is going to be like the biggest thing ever. These guys are going to, their biggest problems are going to have so much growth, they're not going to know what to do with it. So what's the thing that no one thought really could be done? And what is that opportunity then, now that you've figured it out?
True, there is some skepticism in the market, and rightly so, because every crazy idea is a crazy idea until the breakthrough day, and then it becomes a world-changing idea of technology. In our side, also that's true. So what happens to magnets today is the magnet, being magnetic, attaches to steel when you recycle end-of-life products. And hand in hand with steel, it goes to steel recycling plants, iron recycling plants. And there, because of its chemistry, rare earth elements would go into the slag phase, which is a chemical base of iron recycling. And it's a glass phase, just like the glass on our window. Rare earth elements is locked up in there for good. You can recover it back, but that would be very expensive because that phase, the glass phase, is really stable phase. So we lose rare earths because the magnet loves iron so much that they hand in hand go into steel recycling furnace or plant. What we do is basically we separate them with our technology just before steel heads to steel recycling plant. Now we have a solution that didn't exist a few years ago. Now, that technology, which actually I'm really excited to see that the first version of that we are putting in Arizona in commercial scale, that technology enables us to separate magnet from other metals before it's lost forever into the landfill of steelmaking plant. So that's one of the breakthrough technologies we have in the company. But the second one is now the isolated magnet, how to take that and convert it all the way to the raw material with highest quality and be able to operate this plant in the vicinity of the city. Because for a recycling plant, it's important to be environmentally stable. That's why I said 95% of water reduction is key metric for me as I have been designing this technology with my team, because that was one of the focus areas for us in the company. So those pieces of technology are the ones that enable us to do something that no other company has been able to do it in the past. And I agree with the critics. This is big. This is huge. We have a technology here that enables us to unlock a new source of rare earth elements that never been thought of before, never been unlocked before. So this is really a new resource of rare earth elements and critical metals for our industry that we are communicating with our stakeholders and partners. And that is the excitement that all those partners are putting their confidence in us and investing in our company and making contracts with us for feedstock, for offtake. And that's really the key element of it. This step-changing technology is what's all about.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for walking me through that. It's incredibly exciting. Let's talk for a second about one of the things you just said in terms of doing this kind of urban mining, what you've described as a spoken hub model. So the way that I would think about this is you want to go to the places where all the motors are that are going to be recycled. I would imagine it's pretty expensive to have them shipped long distances. Why not locate a facility in a city where all of those motors are, get the motors, separate out the magnets, and then you'll have a hub where you can send probably a lot smaller things, right? So you're shipping smaller, lighter things from the economic supply chain model to a centralized hub for the next phases of the cyclic operation. Can you talk us through how you think about that and what happens in those steps?
Absolutely. End-of-life products come with a lot of entropy. And what I mean by that is the products are distributed with people, with population. Wherever you have more people in a larger city, you have more of those products that we are interested in to recycle. Now, shipping and handling or logistics is one of the costly parts of a circularity related company on the metals space. So we have to optimize for that. And to do that optimization, we broke down our business into two pieces, Spoke and Hub, as you mentioned. In Spoke, we have smaller units of our business close to areas that have enough volume of end-of-life product that we can bring in with shorter distance and process there. Now, the next step is that most of what we recycle, we sell it locally, copper, aluminum, steel. So they are gone already by the time the magnet is isolated from them. And now we have only 5% of the mass that came in as magnet staying with us. And that 5% is a small, high value product that we ship it to our central location, which is called Hub. Now, Hub is a chemical plant. We will need only one of those, for instance, in the US and Canada, North America. We will need only one of those in Europe, and that will receive all the magnets that produce the high value rare earth elements, as well as cobalt and nickel as byproducts. And that's how the business model optimizes for minimizing logistics and shipping handling costs, and also optimizes for having only one dedicated chemical plant, which usually is the higher capital cost plants. Now, last week in our announcement, you saw that for the site in Arizona, the capital cost of that unit is about $20 million. So that's how we think of the capital costs of each of those individual Spoke units to be able to process the material and send the magnets to the Hub.
Yeah, that's brilliant. What I would imagine as you're building this company, I imagine that's not all immediately obvious day one. I would assume you're getting into this, as you said, two observations. There's all these magnets. We need these magnets and electric motors to make the world work. It's only going to become more important. There is no decarbonization if there aren't these magnets. We recycle less than 1% of all the rare earths that have ever been put into any type of machine ever on this planet. Huge opportunity. And you bring all the expertise. Okay, we're going to have the technology to do that. And then there's the business side. There's the supply chain side, which you're incredibly well versed in. But that's iterative to figure that out, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. Some would call it pivot. I call it everyday life in a startup. Yes, absolutely. You have to be agile in making decisions and optimizing business in a way that it makes most sense. And you're right. The business plan probably we had on day one is far different than what we have now. And it's been based on the learnings. We learned so much. The amount of information coming in to the company every single day is ginormous. We have grown from very few people in the company to over 60 people in the company, and everybody comes with their experience. We have hired in the past few months some of the top people from adjacent industries and mining and metal industries and others, engineering companies, and each of them are coming in with some thoughts and things that they know, and they improve our business plan every day. You're right. It's been ever changing.
Oh, I'm sure. And of course, as you go even more international, global, you mentioned that in 2024, you shipped your first ton of rare earth oxides that set a record in terms of being able to do this from recycled materials, very pure. That it's in Canada. Talk to us about what the current operational manufacturing structure looks like. We're getting a chance to talk to you as your company has announced that you're opening a new facility in Arizona, in Mesa. So it's incredibly exciting. What's the current state of operations? Where is that going?
Within 2024, we scaled up the two technologies that I described, Spoke and Hub technologies, let's call them for now, to really larger scale, but still on demonstration size. So in our Spoke in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, we are still able to process 1 ton per hour. That's 2,200 pounds per hour of material. And just to make it a bit more understandable to some of the audience, that's about 10 Tesla or Toyota hybrid car electric motors, the electric motor that drives a car per hour, 10 or 15 of those per hour. That's how much we can process there. And then our chemical plant was 100-ton magnet per year capacity. So that was the capacity we designed it to operate at. Now, these were substantial scale up versus where we started in 2021-22, but still the end goal was much larger than these. So this Spoke that we are building currently in Mesa, Arizona is 8 times larger than the spoke we built in Canada. So that's commercial spoke to process 25,000 tons of end-of-life product per year. That's basically the largest unit of spoke that we envision to build for Cyclic Materials as we go forward, and we will build multiple of those around the continent in North America, Europe, and other jurisdictions. On the hub side, we built at 100-ton-a-year capacity in Kingston, Ontario, Canada as our commercial demonstration plant. But our next goal is to 5x that, 5 times larger, and that is the smallest module of the chemical plant that is commercial, and we will put more of those modules and expand the size of operation in North America and in Europe and other jurisdictions. So those are the 2 projects that we have in the company right now. For Mesa, Arizona, we have much more information on the announcement we had, and for what else we are doing in Canada, we will have much more information in very few months.
For that tech, I'm just curious, we don't have to go too deep, but sometimes a company will build some stage of their pilot process. We did this with my previous company, with Planted. We built the first press in America for building materials, certainly this century, because we built this electrified press. But we built the first one and then we threw it away because we were just like, we just got to get to a 4x8 sheet, show the material works, and that thing's not coming with us. But in your case, as you're going through the steps, what you're building next, how close will it mirror what you've already built? I mean, the whole point is to continue to get all these learnings. Is it fast evolution? Do you have to toss stuff away? Have you been on track the whole time?
Sometimes you have to toss out stuff. I'm not really good with that. I wear the same shirt for 10 years until it's destroyed. So after all, circularity is in my heart. So a lot of pieces of the equipment that we have in those 2 plants in Kingston, Ontario for demonstration, we will either use exactly same unit operations in our scale-up plants, because let's say in a scale-up plant for a unit operation, you have different sizes of that. Maybe what we have in demonstration plant is too small for the largest of what we have in commercial plant, but it's really the right size for the small version of the commercial plant. But what we can't use, we actually are transferring it to R&D side. Sometimes I tell people, I look at Cyclic Materials as Amazon of recycling. We'll recycle much more than just magnets, but definitely we are 100% focused on magnet for the next few years to come. But I'm not going to lie to you, Josh. Some of those we have to toss out because we don't have use for it anymore.
Yeah,
that's the reality. I
was just curious. That's just part of it. And we use stuff for R&D too. So I was curious about that. Let's switch gears. Let's look at commercialization. You've got incredible customers who are on the cap table and who are also customers. You alluded to that. Microsoft came in on your Series B. You extended the Series B. You got Amazon in. I saw Jaguar came in. You've mentioned BMW. This is like the ultimate wish list fantasy for climate tech entrepreneurs to be able to put together this type of cap table. First question would be, what's the value proposition that is so strong, whether it's a Microsoft or Amazon? And I know you have other customers too that are in Europe, and I've heard you talk about some others, but what's that value proposition that's getting them all so excited and coming to the table?
Companies that have invested in us, or we are partnering with them, or they are part of our supply chain, majority of them have one of the 2, or both the environment side or geopolitics side. So let's unpack both of them. So on the environmental side, for instance, Microsoft, they have a goal of zero waste 2030, and they are really working hard towards that. And if that's the case, sustainability of the material that we produce is quite important. And opposed to that, some other companies do need a lot of rare earth magnets, and their supply chain is tied significantly to China. This is really supply chain 101. You want a diversified supply chain of your feedstock and also buyers on the other side. So for those companies, diversification of their supply chain and making sure that they are not 100% dependent on one company in one country is quite important. And I will also add that what we offer to them is really unique. We offer them a recycled, local, secure supply chain of most critical metals with really low carbon footprint. And a lot of them have been fantastic to work with on the process of onboarding and working with them.
Okay, there's geopolitical considerations, there's carbon and sustainability, environmental considerations. What about the product itself, the magnet or the rare earth elements in terms of quality? Is it cost? Is it purity? What are the customers looking for? Are you matching what exists in the market? Are you beating that?
I'm not going to comment on the pricing side, but I can tell you what we produce is the highest quality in the market I have seen ever. And the reason for that are a variety of reasons. For instance, we don't have any rare earths in our supply chain that comes from mining industry. We are exclusively circularity company. We only recycle because of that magnets, and magnets only have the five valuable rare earth elements in them. So we do recycle only. Our basket of rare earths, unlike mining industry, is really the highest quality magnet rare earth elements. Because we do recycle magnets, there's no radioactive material, uranium, thorium in our basket of material. It's absolutely clean and fantastic. And because of our hub technology, we produce really high quality material that hits the spec every single day that we make the metal in our process. That has been driving a lot of conversations we have with some of the partners. For instance, Solvay has been receiving our material, and other parties that we have been sending them material to analyze, and all of them are, hey, how much more of that you can provide us? That has been a critical piece of what we have in the company. Quality because of what we process and also the process we have.
I'm going to respect your view on price, and I am going to interpret that to mean that the value proposition is so strong based on all these factors that we're talking about that customers are lining up to work with you.
We have large volume of ask from the industry for what we produce, that we have to really run faster to be able to supply.
Okay, so let's come back to that. I don't want to linger on the skepticism, but I want to linger on what was behind the skepticism from the critical minerals industry saying, this is really hard. It's never been done. Let's see if they can figure it out. You figured it out. And then the second part to that was like, because if they have, there is going to be so much demand. Paint a picture for what that demand looks like. I mean, we're moving toward decarbonization, which means electrification, which means more electric motors. Is it everybody? Is it BMW? Do you sell to the OEM? Do you sell to the car manufacturer? Who are you selling to? And like, how do you think about this industry in terms of put a dollar? Is it $1 trillion industry? Like, what is it?
Sure, absolutely. I will come back to that, but I'm going to make a comment on the skepticism first. I actually did invite them to come and visit our plant. And I can tell you, whenever people come in and see what we do, there is an aha moment. Oh, this is what you're talking about. And they like us a bit more after they leave.
Just so you know where I'm coming from. I've been involved with tons of things where there's tons of skeptics. I mean, I briefly mentioned the company that I was running before Supercool. We make building materials out of grass, right? Grass to replace trees. So of course you're going to have a million people who say, well, that can't be done. And we've talked to the biggest competitors on the planet who laughed at us, which made me happy because that meant that they weren't going to pay any attention to us and we could just go do our thing. So I love them when they're skeptics. Like, we'll just go do our thing and we'll see you at the finish line. Just so it's clear, like, where I'm coming from. I just find it like fascinating that like, yeah, whatever. There's people out there like this game, and then you just go do it. I mean, that's what being a climate tech founder is all about.
Absolutely. And anything other than that would be wrong, to be honest. 100% aligned with you on that. But I will tell you on supply chain of magnets, because after all, the goal is to get these rare earth elements back to fresh magnets and different products. The supply chain is today heavily within China. So China has been basically the leader on how to bring in material from outside or mine the material within China, then purify that to mixed rare earth oxide, then separate it to individual oxide, then make the metal and magnet out of it, and then put it into end products. So that supply chain today very rarely exists outside China in really limited version. But this is to change in the next few years. For instance, I will make you some examples. Vacuum Schmitz, the largest magnet manufacturer in Europe, which happens to be in Germany, is building a large plant in South Carolina today for magnet manufacturing. Linus, an Australian company on rare earth space, they are building a solvent extraction or separation plant for rare earth oxide in Texas today. Department of Defense and Department of Energy has supported both projects, so they're moving forward rapidly. There are other projects on the other sides of the spectrum and other sides of the supply chain being built in Europe, in US, in Canada. So those pieces are finally, after so many years, those pieces are coming along together nicely in outside China world. And that gives me a lot of hope. So what we produce today, rare earth oxides, will be fed into the same supply chain outside China. The separators will separate that. The metal makers will make metal out of that, and magnet manufacturers will make magnet out of that. But the ultimate consumer of the magnet are car companies, are OEMs, are wine manufacturers, are hard disk drive manufacturers. The list really goes on. The OEMs that make your power tools in your garage, or washer dryer manufacturer, or AC companies, the Samsungs of the world, Bosches of the world, and many more, to name a few. So those are the companies that have a lot of interest in these magnets. And just to also give you a scale of the demand, there are many different ways to quantify this and tell so audience can comprehend it. This is a few years dated, but I love this analogy here. Just the consumption of NdPr, neodymium praseodymium in England in 2030 will be equal to the consumption of neodymium praseodymium globally in 2021. Think of it. And that's how fast we need access to those metals. By 2035, we will need 5 times more of rare earth metals that we need today. And that's substantial increase in how much of those metals we can produce in that short amount of time. 10 years, 10 short years.
Yeah, that fully sinks home. So we're 2025, in 10 years, we need to 5x the amount of rare earths that are available for everything that's being built.
Exactly.
I can see why the world is knocking at your door and saying, let's talk, because this is crucial. And the way you're doing it, you mentioned with a footprint that's much, much smaller than how the industry operates. It aligns kind of like we've talked about. I think I'm just processing here out loud as I'm hearing everything you said around decarbonization, around geopolitics, around the global economy. What is needed to continue to build the modern world?
And to tie this whole thing up, capital efficiency is another thing. So you really need to be capital efficient in this space, because putting billions and billions of dollars into this space is going to be really hard to justify on day one. With that, we had to be thinking deeply on how we're going to be capital efficient and deliver everything else that you mentioned. And that's basically Cyclic Materials.
I love that, because that brings it back to why a startup to come in and disrupt an industry, because an incumbent, a legacy company, it wouldn't be in the DNA to think this way, to be so nimble, so cost efficient, really rethinking the supply chain and how this gets done.
Exactly. And that's the story of Cyclic Material. Again, to revisit that, we started the company in 2021. We rapidly and very efficiently scaled up our technology to a scale that gives us a lot of confidence that, yes, this is working on large scale. And now we are very rapidly, again, building our first bespoke in Mesa, Arizona, which is going to be processing 25,000 tons of product per year. But I will tell you two things. Two things impresses me the most in Mesa. We strategically decided we want to go to Arizona. But the first thing is the quality of talent. Oh my goodness. I am absolutely pleased with the applicants we are receiving. We have about 30 more positions to fill in Mesa, and I'm absolutely blown away with the quality of talent, which is expected from Arizona with long history of mining, metals, chemical plants, and whatnot. And the support we have been receiving in this space from the governor's office, from the senator's office, from the mayor's office, everyone. It's been fantastic to be part of the community and built in Mesa.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Ahmad, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing all this, your background, the story. I just love it. I'm so excited to continue to follow your success, your company's success with something that's vital for, I mean, you name it, vital for how we're tackling climate, vital for how we think about security in the West. So many issues that this aligns with the low carbon future and where we all want to go. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much, Josh. This has been fantastic.